Hello, friends. Today I will compare the day of an American and the day of a Soviet person in 1980. It's amazing how different the world was back then. An ordinary day. What could be more mundane? But if we peek simultaneously into an apartment in Los Angeles and into an apartment in Moscow, we'll see two parallel worlds existing side by side and yet almost never intersecting. Morning begins the same way, with an alarm clock. But from there, everything diverges. The American wakes up to the sound of an electronic alarm clock, bought at the nearest Sears. It sits on the nightstand, next to a lamp and a stack of newspapers. The radio clicks on, and a cheerful announcer's voice delivers the news. Morning traffic jams on Highway 10, the weather forecast, and the dollar exchange rate. The first thing the head of the house does is switch on the coffee maker. The hot, fragrant aroma fills the kitchen, along with a sense of control. The day begins with a familiar ritual, and everything seems clear. Now, Moscow. Here too the alarm rings, but more often it's a mechanical Soviet clock with a metallic clatter loud enough to make even the neighbors jump. The Soviet man reaches for it with a sleepy hand, shuts it off, and instead of the radio, hears morning silence, broken only by sounds from the courtyard. Someone warming up their Zhiguli, someone walking their dog. Coffee makers are practically non-existent. In the kitchen waits an immersion heater and a tin can of Indian tea, bought through connections. Coffee, if it's there at all, is instant, bitter, and a rare guest on the table. The difference begins right away, with the small things. In America, morning means choice. Newspaper, radio, coffee, fresh food in the fridge. In the USSR, morning means discipline. Teapot, bread, standing in line at the dairy store, if you're lucky enough to grab a couple of bottles of milk in glass jars. On the American's wall hangs a calendar with scenic views. On the Soviet wall, a poster with the slogan, "Fulfill the 5-year plan ahead of schedule." And right here, we see the first paradox. People in different systems woke up at the same time, but they rose into entirely different realities. One stepped into a day filled with opportunities, the other into a day filled with limitations. Yet both believed they were living the right way. And so, in these two kitchens, the story begins that will take us through an entire day, from breakfast to night. Two lives, two worlds, one era. America and the Soviet Union. Breakfast, the moment of truth. It always reflects not only tastes, but also the system a person lives in. The American opens the refrigerator. Cold air and the light bulb illuminate shelves packed with food. A carton of orange juice, bacon in clear packaging, a dozen eggs, a box of milk, jars of jam, fresh vegetables. Everything neatly arranged, like an exhibition of possibilities. He takes out a frying pan with a Teflon coating, lays down strips of bacon, and the kitchen fills with the smell of sizzling fat. Eggs fry in a couple of minutes, toast browns in the toaster. On the table appear butter, jam, and a mug of black coffee. This is the standard American breakfast, almost a symbol of the era. Hearty, fast, and varied. Now let's peek into a Soviet kitchen. The ZIL refrigerator hums like a little tractor, and its shelves look far more modest. Bread, a piece of butter, a jar of cherry jam made in the summer, and carefully stored in the pantry. On the stove cooks porridge, semolina, or oatmeal. Milk, if one was lucky, sits in a glass bottle, sealed with a foil cap. Sometimes there's an egg, soft or hard-boiled. But more often, breakfast is just porridge and bread. Tea is the constant morning companion. It's brewed in a teapot, then diluted with boiling water into a glass with a metal holder. The difference is felt in every detail. The American starts the day with calories and choice. The Soviet citizen with habit and moderation. There, it's a culture of abundance. Here, a culture of modesty and shortage. The irony is that both view their mornings as normal. The American is sure that bacon and orange juice are the natural part of middle-class life. The Soviet doesn't think porridge and bread mean poverty. For him, it's order, routine, even comfort. But breakfast also sets the mood. The American switches on the television, news, forecasts, commercials. His day is colored with practicality. What to buy, where to drive, which stocks are up. The Soviet turns on the radio. A cheerful announcer talks about 5-year plan goals, new victories in space, and how the country marches toward a bright future. His day begins with slogans, and now they're ready to leave home. One gets into his car and merges into the freeway stream. The other walks or descends into the metro, already boiling over with people by 7 in the morning. Their commutes to work are mirrors of their worlds. The commute. The American leaves his house. His home is not a panel high-rise, but a neat suburban cottage with a green lawn. In the driveway shines his car, a Ford, a Chevrolet, or, if his career has gone well, a brand new Cadillac. The car is a symbol of independence, and for the middle class, life without it is impossible. He gets behind the wheel, turns on the radio. Billy Joel or the Eagles are playing. But with the music comes the trial, the freeway. In Los Angeles or New York, the multi-lane roads turn into rivers of metal every morning. Hours spent in traffic jams become part of daily life. Yet even here there is choice. He can switch on the air conditioning, listen to the news, sip coffee from a plastic cup. The jam annoys him, but he still feels control over his time and his route. Now, Moscow. The Soviet citizen exits the entrance of a panel 9-story building. In the lot stand a few Zhigulis and Moskvishis, but cars are rare. Only a minority own one. Most walk to the bus or metro. Some carry a net shopping bag, just in case something appears in stores on the way home. At the metro entrance, crowds gather. The stairs, the escalator, and soon the underground is jammed full. The train arrives and people literally push each other inside. Breathing is difficult, but everyone stays silent. Newspapers in hands, some read Pravda or Izvestia. Others simply stand, staring at the window. In the metro, everyone feels the same thing. Time does not belong to them. They are subject to the rhythm of the city. Symbolically, the commute in the USA and USSR reflects two visions of life. In America, a person is dependent on traffic, yet feels free. He is behind the wheel. In the USSR, the metro is fast, reliable, on schedule, but freedom is absent. He is part of the flow, part of the mechanism. And both are accustomed to it. The American accepts hours in traffic. The Soviet accepts the crowding and lack of choice. And now they arrive at work. One enters an office with air conditioning, a telephone, and a computer on his desk. The other goes to a factory shop, where machines roar and oil scents the air. The workday begins, and here the contrast becomes even sharper. The workday, a mirror of the era. The American arrives at his office. It's a multi-story building of glass and concrete, with a parking lot for hundreds of cars. In the lobby, the air conditioning hums. A secretary greets employees. And on the wall hangs a corporate slogan like, "Work hard, achieve success." His spot is a cubicle, a small space with partitions, a desk, a phone, and, most importantly, a computer. Yes, it's not yet a laptop, but a bulky machine with a green screen, already a symbol of the future. His day is calls, documents, meetings, planning sessions. Success here is measured in numbers on reports and chances for promotion. Every effort can turn into career growth, and career growth means a mortgage for a bigger house, a better car, a vacation in Florida. The Soviet worker's day begins differently. His office is a factory shop where machines roar and the air smells of metal shavings. Workers put on uniforms, roll up sleeves. Some go to their lathes, others to the conveyor. The air is filled with humming, grinding, the smell of oil. No partitions, no computers. Instead, there's the morning briefing. The foreman reads the daily plan. Meet the quota, 120 parts, by the end of the shift. The workday isn't a chance to earn a bonus, but a duty. Fail the quota, you risk a fine or a reprimand. Success isn't career growth, but simply keeping your job and maybe getting a 5-ruble premium. The atmosphere is different too. The American knows his work is tied to competition and the market. The Soviet worker knows his work is tied to the state plan and control numbers. There, motivation comes from salary and advancement. Here, motivation comes from "it must be done." But they share one thing. By midday, both dream of food. In America, it's a lunch break. In the USSR, the factory cafeteria. And at the table again collide two worlds, seemingly so different, but both dependent on what's on the plate. Lunch, the moment when the workday pauses, and for a short while life returns to simple pleasures. But this moment looked very different on opposite sides of the ocean. The American steps out of his office into a lively district. On the corner, McDonald's with golden arches. Further down, Burger King, and beyond, a small pizzeria. The lines move fast. The menus are simple. Hamburgers, French fries, soda. Everything is ready in minutes. Some already carry a cardboard cup of Coca-Cola. Others a paper bag with a sandwich. Lunch here means speed and calories to last until evening. And also, choice. The American can grab pizza, Mexican tacos, Chinese noodles. Food is everywhere, in display cases, vending machines, on every corner. The Soviet worker heads to the factory cafeteria. A queue stretches toward the serving window. The air smells of borscht, cutlets, and overcooked cabbage. The menu is fixed. Soup, a main dish, and compote. Borscht with a piece of meat or cabbage soup, a cutlet with pasta or buckwheat. For dessert, kissel or a bun. Prices are low. A cutlet is 40 kopecks, borscht 20. But choice is nominal, take it or leave it. Sometimes instead of a proper cutlet, you get a dark, leathery slab. At least the bread is unlimited. At the tables, conversations flow. In America, colleagues discuss stocks, sports, television shows. In the USSR, workers talk about where sausage has been thrown onto the shelves, who managed to get jeans through friends, and rumors of price increases. Lunch becomes not just a meal, but a continuation of life. Here they discuss what concerns everyone. The break ends quickly. In America, the plastic cup lands in the trash, and the worker returns to his cubicle or car. In the USSR, the empty tray goes back on the cart, and the worker returns to the machine. But before diving back into tasks, both have another ritual: the news. In America, it comes from TV and cafeterias. In the USSR, from Pravda. And here, once again, the gap in worldviews opens wide. After lunch, people look for news, a breath of air, a way to glance at the big world beyond work. But in 1980, an American and a Soviet citizen saw completely different pictures, though they lived on the same planet. The American unfolds the latest issue of the New York Times or the Washington Post. Headlines cover elections, the economy, the hostage crisis in Iran. Another page shows ads for new cars, movie reviews, and the weather forecast. If he turns on the TV, he might watch CNN, the first 24-hour news channel born in this decade. Cameras broadcast images from around the globe. Anchors discuss events live. News flows as facts and commentary, leaving the viewer to decide what to believe. And even if propaganda lurks, it is wrapped in analysis. The Soviet citizen opens Pravda or Izvestia. Bold headlines announce successful fulfillment of the 9th five-year plan or new triumphs of Soviet science. The front pages show party leaders' visits, reports on factory construction, speeches of the General Secretary. Tucked away in a corner is a tiny note about foreign events, carefully filtered for what could be shown. Turn on the radio, and there are upbeat marches, reports on labor achievements, victories of the socialist bloc. On TV, the program Vremya, where the announcer, in a stern voice, reads texts vetted by dozens of editors. The difference is stark. The American hears about inflation, crises, and global trouble, and can curse the government, freely discuss it. The Soviet hears only of victories and must be proud, even if he knows in his heart that store shelves are bare. And yet, both are shaped by these broadcasts. The American may leave the news worried about the economy or fearing new wars. The Soviet may leave the news with weary irritation. Everything looks perfect on screen. But that evening he'll stand in line for sausage again. By the end of the day, both are ready to head for the store. One drives to a supermarket, the other to a state grocery shop. And once again, the contrast speaks louder than any slogans. Evening. The workday is over, and now both have the same goal, to buy groceries. But in 1980, this trip to the store unfolded in two very different ways. The American drives to a supermarket, a huge building with a neon sign, a parking lot for hundreds of cars, and carts clattering at the entrance. Inside, bright lights, air conditioning, and endless aisles, shelves groan under abundance, dozens of types of milk, entire rows of cereals, frozen pizzas, fruits from around the world, apples from Chile, bananas from Ecuador, oranges from Florida. At the checkout, a smiling cashier, and in the customer's hand, either a plastic card or paper dollars. Everything is quick. Everything is convenient. He himself chooses what to put in the basket. A world of abundance where the only limit is the wallet. The Soviet citizen walks to the gastronome. At the entrance, a line. Inside, the lighting is dim, and shelves are mostly bare. On display, 3 loaves of bread, a few cans of stew, a pile of cabbage and carrots. Behind the counter, the saleswoman holds back scarce goods for acquaintances. Everyone knows good items won't reach all. The real currency here is connections. Someone gets sausage through friends. Someone sneaks out a packet of butter from the back room. Someone else goes home with nothing but bread and a jar of mayonnaise. In America, the store is freedom of choice. In the Soviet Union, it's a lottery. And in this lottery, the winners are those with blatt connections, or the patience to stand in line for hours. Here's a woman who heard that chickens were thrown onto the shelves at another store and rushes off. Here's a man who buys everything available just in case, because tomorrow there may be nothing. The irony: in both countries, shopping becomes part of the culture. In the US, it's a family event: carts, discounts, sales. In the USSR, it's a social ritual. In line, people talk politics, complain about the government, share rumors. The store is where reality reveals itself. After shopping, the American's evening is just beginning. TV, the cinema, a bar, or the gym. The Soviet also hurries home to turn on the TV or go to the House of Culture. Evening is leisure time, and here again, the contrast leaps out. Evening, the time when the day lays its cards on the table. Here it becomes clear what really fills people's lives, what entertains and distracts them. The American comes home, sets the supermarket bags down in the kitchen, opens a can of beer, and settles into the living room. At the center is the television, big, color, with dozens of channels. He turns it on and sees news, sitcoms, talk shows, action movies, cartoons. Networks compete for attention. Commercials cut in every 10 minutes. And the ads themselves become part of the culture. If he feels like it, he can head to a movie theater to watch The Empire Strikes Back, the new Harrison Ford film. Or he can meet friends at a bar, drink whiskey, shoot pool. Entertainment is everywhere. TV, cinema, sports broadcasts, concerts. The evening is meant to be bright and full. The Soviet citizen comes home with his mesh bag, a vodka. He switches on the television, and the options are far fewer. Channel 1 or Channel 2. On the screen, the Vremya news program, concerts, shows about agricultural achievements, comedies with familiar actors. Sometimes there's a film, usually Soviet or party-approved. Hollywood blockbusters won't appear, but there may be Goluboy Ogonyok, the blue light variety show, or Kabachok 13 Stulyev, a popular comedy show. For many families, the evening TV ritual is almost sacred: dinner and television. If there's no TV, people go to the House of Culture to watch a film on the big screen, or gather at a friend's who owns a set. The difference is stark. American entertainment offers an endless stream of choice and brightness. Soviet entertainment is limited, but communal. Watching TV in the USSR isn't just about what's on the screen, but about the conversations around it. In the evening, the system's fingerprints are clearest. In America, shows and ads create the illusion of celebration every day. In the USSR, even leisure is a reminder of the state. But in both places, evenings are needed to ease the day's fatigue. Yet the night isn't only about television. For young people, it's about going out, discos, music, culture. Youth is always a mirror of the future. In America, Friday night means discos and clubs. Queen, Pink Floyd, AC/DC blast from the speakers. Dance floors glow with light shows and mirrored balls. Young men pull on Levi's jeans. Women wear glittery dresses. They dance until dawn, drinking Coca-Cola, beer, or something stronger. Those with money and connections score tickets to live concerts: Bob Dylan, the Eagles, Michael Jackson. Music and fashion become ways to declare, "I'm who I want to be, not who others tell me to be." It's a culture of individualism at full volume. In the Soviet Union, youth gathers in houses of culture or school gyms turned into dance halls. There's no DJ profession. Instead, a reel-to-reel tape recorder, electronica, or yowza plays. On the tapes, Soviet pop, but often someone sneaks in a dubbed Beatles or Rolling Stones record, and the hall truly comes alive. Jeans are rare, obtained through fartsovshchiki, black market traders, and they become a symbol of freedom. Bands like Machina Vremeni, Kino, Akvarium become the voice of a generation, heard more in basements and kitchens than on television. The contrast is huge, but the essence is the same. Youth everywhere seeks freedom. Americans find it in dazzling shows, rock concerts, fashion. Soviet youth finds it in forbidden tapes, samizdat, songs whispered quietly. There, freedom comes packaged with a ticket stub. Here, it comes through risk and secret tape exchanges. And yet, both the American and the Soviet young man return home with similar thoughts. How should I live? What should I strive for? What will tomorrow bring? Their dreams differ. In the U.S., it's a career, a house with a pool, their own car. In the USSR, it's a separate apartment, a pair of real jeans, maybe a trip south. And this leads us smoothly to the most important topic: family and everyday life. Family and home life. That territory where slogans and politics fade, and what remains is what shapes daily existence. The American comes back in the evening to his suburban house, a 2-story cottage with a lawn, garage, maybe even a swimming pool. Inside, a spacious living room, a kitchen filled with appliances, separate bedrooms for the kids. The house is bought on credit. The mortgage hangs over his shoulders. But for him, it's part of the American dream. Dinner is served at a large table: steak, vegetables, mashed potatoes, salad. Conversations circle around school, work, vacation plans. On weekends, the family may host a barbecue, invite neighbors, grill meat in the yard. The Soviet citizen returns to his apartment in a prefabricated concrete block. The kitchen, 6 square meters, barely enough for a table, fridge, and stove. One room for parents, another for kids, sometimes grandma too. Dinner is potatoes, cutlets, or soup, if meat was available. On the table, maybe a jar of pickles preserved in summer, or a beet salad. Conversations are also about the day, how work went, school news, what was or wasn't found in the store. But there's always the refrain of shortage. The neighbor said the grocery store got butter. We need to queue for the carpet tomorrow. In America, the household projects a sense of abundance. A TV in the living room, dishwasher, microwave. In the USSR, it projects a sense of struggle. A Malyutka washing machine that must be hooked up manually. A Chaika vacuum cleaner that roars like a jet engine. Yet in both systems, family remains the heart of life. Dreams shine clearly here. The American family dreams of a bigger house, a second car, a trip to Europe. The Soviet family dreams of a new flat from the waiting list, a Zhiguli car, a matching furniture set. Different systems, but the same core, the desire to live better. And within this contrast emerge both fears and hopes, because each person knows the future depends not only on them, but on the world around them. Dreams and fears, they make a person vulnerable, but they reveal what an era truly breathed. The American, sitting on his couch in front of the TV, dreams of career growth. He imagines himself in a big office with his own secretary, with a new car in the garage. For him, the American dream is real, something attainable through hard work, credit, and smart choices. But behind the dream lurks fear. The fear of losing his job, failing to pay the mortgage, drowning in debt. The fear that the economy might tilt and the house bought on credit will become a crushing burden. His hopes are tied to money, and his fears to losing it. The Soviet man dreams differently. His dreams are more modest: a separate apartment instead of a cramped two-room flat, a Zhiguli car instead of the bus, a carpet for the wall, Polish furniture, Czech crystal. Sometimes the dream stretches further, a trip abroad. But even that feels remote. His main fear is shortage and instability, that tomorrow the store shelves will be bare of butter, that his paycheck won't cover boots for the child, that the promised improved standard of living by 1980 will remain just a slogan. But there is one shared fear binding them both: the shadow of the Cold War. The American watches the news of the nuclear arms race and thinks, what if war starts tomorrow? The Soviet man listens to the radio and asks himself the same. What if America strikes first? In those years, the world lived with the constant dread that one wrong step could end in catastrophe. Neither American television nor the Soviet program Vremya could silence that anxiety. The dreams diverge, the fears intertwine. Together, they form the final chord of the day, because after them comes only the night. A short pause before everything repeats again. Night, the time when the world grows quiet, and in the silence one can hear what people truly live for. The American turns off the lights in the living room, switches off the TV, and heads upstairs. In the bedroom, the air conditioner hums softly. The mattress is thick and comfortable. The sheets smell fresh. He may read a book, flip through a magazine, or listen to the radio with headphones. Outside the window stretch suburban streets, neat rows of houses, each with another family going to sleep inside. Before bed, he thinks of tomorrow. Traffic jams on the highway, a meeting at work, the mortgage that needs to be paid. Alongside worry, though, there is confidence. The system works, and tomorrow will be the same. The Soviet man falls asleep differently. In his two-room flat, the TV is turned off. Dishes are cleared. The kitchen smells of tea and yesterday's cutlets. The bedroom is cramped. Parents in one room, kids in another. Sometimes everyone sharing. Outside the window, the courtyard of the apartment block, echoing with barking dogs and late voices. The air inside is stuffy. The vent window is open, letting in cooking smells from neighbors. Before bed, he thinks of tomorrow, getting up early to queue for milk, hurrying to work, remembering the bread coupons. Tomorrow will bring the same again: work, canteen, news, store, TV. And in that sameness lies both his comfort and his prison. Night unites them in one thing: both fall asleep with hope. The American hopes one day to move higher up and buy a bigger house. The Soviet man hopes one day to get keys to a new apartment and no longer share a kitchen. Two worlds, two dreams, two nights. And here the main truth resounds: despite walls, oceans, and ideology, people live nearly identical cycles. Morning, work, food, family, dreams, fears. Only the scenery differs. Yet it is that scenery that shapes history. The paradox is clear. While politicians hurled threats at each other, ordinary people lived lives that were mirrors of each other. One feared losing a mortgage, another missing a place in line for chicken. One dreamed of a bigger house, another of a new apartment. One went to rock concerts, another secretly copied cassettes. In the end, they were united by one thing: the desire to live better and the hope that tomorrow would be calmer than today. History always shows contrasts, but beneath them lies a single thread: humanity. Subscribe to the channel. Hit like if you enjoyed this story. See you soon. Bye-bye.